So another question we're often asked about is whether we should be looking at using more native plants or whether non-native plants are fine to have in the garden. Well, I think that most people would accept that most gardens have a mixture of non-natives and natives. Now, some non-natives have their place for wildlife. They can provide cover and they can provide food in the form of nectar and pollen for some of our wildlife. So for example, sedum is flowering at the moment, and that's a nice autumn flower to have in your garden for wildlife. But I would always tend to say that natives are best, and that's because many of our insects have evolved with our native plants, and a lot of those native plants actually provide the larval food plant for some of those insects. So for example, we had orange tip butterflies laying eggs this year on garlic mustard that was growing in the hedge in our garden. So that was providing a larval food plant, which is really, really important. So not only do the native plants provide larval food plants, but they also provide some pollen quite often and nectar and cover, and are really important for our wildlife. Now I'm standing next to a really important autumn native plant here. So this is ivy. Now ivy is so important at this time of year, possibly the most important flowering plant in the autumn that we have here. So it's not a sunny afternoon, so we can't see any pollinators at the moment, but it will flower right into November, and it will be providing some nectar and pollen for those insects that are trying to feed up before they go into hibernation. So bees particularly will be feeding on this at the moment. In fact, honeybees will be getting 89% of their food from ivy at this time of year. There are other bees, for example the ivy mining bee, which is completely reliant, pretty much completely reliant upon this plant at this time of year. Now when these flowers have turned to berries, those berries will also be important for birds going into the winter. And ivy is an evergreen, so therefore it provides year-round cover for insects like brimstone butterflies, for example, which hibernate, so they can hibernate within that lovely leafy cover. So if you've got some ivy in your garden, then leave it to flower at this time of year and let the berries form, and leave those as well for the birds. It really is a wonderful plant for wildlife.